Hey everybody, welcome back from spring break. And I think you're going to enjoy what we're diving into this week, which is Shakespeare's history play, Henry IV, Part 1. And as I mentioned in the email of why I changed this out from Othello, I think Henry IV really pulls in a lot of these discussions we've been having about what the role of different people in each kingdom is. Specifically, when I'm thinking about Beowulf and his role, and Sir Gawain and his role, and even the Knight and the Knight's Tale. All of those things have been exchanging on these same ideas of honor, loyalty, chivalry, and virtue that we've continued to talk about throughout the semester. It is the lifeblood of this history play, which is Henry IV, Part 1. And it's a brilliant play that has some really great characters, and the narrative is pretty easy to follow, because I know sometimes with the Shakespeare plays that things can go a little crazy. I love that about them, but I also know that they can be a little bit hard to follow at times. So this video this week is just to get you geared up for what you're going to be doing throughout the rest of this week. So as you can see behind me, we're going to walk through a three-part structure for this video, where I'm basically showing you everything and pointing out some keynotes to think about. So we'll first talk about Shakespeare in the theater, then we're going to do some work on the play, and then some writing instructions that I want to leave you with. So you will notice in Blackboard, and I can go ahead and head that direction with you now, is there are a lot of videos here available to you, which is one of the great resources that we have in to us in YouTube and these other things, is that so many people have put so much valuable information on there. And then rather than trying to retell exactly what they're talking about, I've provided it there for you to have some background information. So as you look at these videos, I want to introduce you to first Shakespeare's Globe Theater. Which is a nice video from Harvard, and it's by Stephen Greenblatt, who used to be the general editor of the Norton Anthology, so the anthology that we have in this class. And he gives it's a 10-minute video, but really talks about not just the theaters themselves, but also what it was like to watch plays at Shakespeare's Globe, just across from downtown London, across the Thames River. It's a fascinating video because it really gives some great information about how the stage operated, who the people were that were coming to the plays, what were the most important things, and just the way that the whole thing operated. So I think it's a really great video for you to watch to get into that culture a little bit, because this was the popular culture of the day. This is where people were going to see and to be seen. And you had people from all different wealth backgrounds there, from the poorest folks who could at least afford an entry ticket. They would stand in front of the stage on the ground. They were called the groundlings, all the way up to actually paying to sit on the stage in a lot of cases, which is a terrible way to view a play, as Stephen Greenblatt says. But it's a great way to be seen in all of your, all of your dress and the things you worked out for the play. So watch that video. And then I really recommend this video, Why Shakespeare Loved Iambic Pentameter. I'm going to pull up these reading notes real quick to show you why. So Shakespeare has a way that he talks and the way that he writes whenever he's writing in verse. And it's called iambic pentameter, which means that there's 10 syllables in each line, and that the stress is on the back syllable, right? So I'm going to show you this in this first line that I have in the reading notes. So if we just read this straight, it would be, "Yea, there thou makest me sad and makest me sin." But listen to the rhythm as it comes out, as I'm going to read it. Yea, thou, excuse me, sorry about that. Yea, there thou makes me sad and makes me sin. So you can hear the rhythm coming out in that. So I'm going to try that again. So just slow it down a little bit. Yea, there thou makest me sad and makest me sin. Right? So even in the first reading, I got the rhythm a little bit off, but you can hear that dun 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 dun, almost like a heartbeat. Yea, there thou makest me sad and makest me sin. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And notice the words that are emphasized on that syllable, and think about that for a second. So, there makest sad makest sin. And if you think about that, that is the core of what this line is trying to say. Makes sad, makes sin. That there's this immediate sense of the king here, King Henry IV, feeling this sadness over his son. And so you hear in that syllable, or in that line pronunciation, the points that he's wanting to emphasize and that Shakespeare is wanting to emphasize. And that's why this language is so brilliant. That video is going to explain it more. The famous Shakespeare line is such a great example. To be or not to be, that is the question. To be or not to be, that is the question. And that idea of what is emphasized on those stressed syllables, be, not, be. Isn't that what Hamlet is wrestling with, is whether or not he wants to stay alive? So you can see the brilliance of Shakespeare even all the way down to his individual language. So that video is really helpful for helping you see that, and it's just incredible when you hear that rhythm, because even though we're in what we would call early modern English or the early modern period, I know there's still some distance between the type of language that Shakespeare used and the type of language that we use every day. But if you can find that rhythm, it's almost like reading poetry or listening to music, and it opens things up a lot more because you're able to hear the rhythm and to read it along those lines. So take a look and enjoy that video that explains so much. And then, I've already opened the reading notes, but that's where they are for this week. Now, your assignment, I'll give you a bit of a preview, is to take one of the four major characters, King Henry IV, his son Prince Hal, John Falstaff, who is a total character and one that you really enjoy, and then Hotspur. And you're going to take one of those four characters and you're going to discuss them that character in terms of the four terms we've been using. Pick one, pick all, it's up to you. Honor, loyalty, chivalry, virtue. And unpack how this play describes them. So you can think about the way that Henry IV has honor for himself, for his kingdom, and toward his son. What is Hal doing when is he being dishonorable when he's hanging out in Cheapside? Sir John Falstaff, is he honorable at all? He says he's not, but it might be the only honest person in this play, even though he's a liar, which is a weird thing to think about, which is why Falstaff is brilliant. And then Hotspur, who should be honorable to the king, built his whole motivation around honor, and yet is participating in an open rebellion. So it's a really fascinating look at this play and these concepts. So those reading notes go in order of the play. So let me pull those out. And then just read through there. And you definitely need to read the entire play, because there's only so much that I can include. And those are pretty long reading notes because I quote from the text at length. But you need to still read the play and dig into it, because it's just so brilliant, and I think that you'll really enjoy it. Right? So you've got those videos on Shakespeare in the Theater, as you see behind me. You've got the play itself, and after you've read the reading notes and the play, what I wanted to bring to your attention is the performance of it. Remember, plays are not designed to be read only, they're designed to be seen. So what we've got is a couple of production examples. So I'm going to go back over here, and if you look here, you'll see this video is from The Hollow Crown, which is a recent series that was done by the BBC and by PBS brought it in. And if you have the Roku channel, they are on the Roku channel, and they are very, very good. And you will recognize Henry, who becomes Henry V, and it's Prince Hal in this play is Tom Hiddleston, right, from Loki fame and from the Avengers. He plays the main character, Henry V, and then Prince Hal in these first two plays. It's great. They do such a great job with it, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Next, we have, excuse me, a scene from the tavern from Shakespeare's Globe, and I'm just going to pull this up really quickly. We'll skip REI's ad. Sorry, guys. Viking. As soon as I can. Bigfoot sighting. And here we go. All right, so what's really cool about this, and I just want to click a little bit through, this is filmed at Shakespeare's Globe Theater, right? So that that video, where am I? Here I am. That video that you watched earlier where Stephen Greenblatt is explaining all of the globe. Well, this is a production in the globe, and you can see exactly what is there and how they would perform this. The guy playing Falstaff is just brilliant, a guy named Roger Allam. And if I don't know if you guys watch British Detective TV, but if you've ever, it's really good, by the way. If there's a show called Endeavor that you can watch on Amazon Prime, he plays one of the main characters, Fred Thursday. So anyway, so that information is there for you. These videos are there for you. I think you'll really enjoy them because you get into the characters, you get into understanding what they're doing and how the plays are produced. Now, one of the things we don't get to talk at length about, because we're only doing Shakespeare in a week, is all that goes into production and the choices that directors make in terms of how they're going to produce characters, who they're casting for these roles, what points of the play they emphasize. It's all a fascinating study. If you have the opportunity to take a whole class on Shakespeare, I think you should. The professors that teach those classes do an excellent job of really enveloping you in the culture. And once you dig into this, you start to see it open up a lot more, and you'll really enjoy it. So all of that information, all of those things are there for you to use, and then for you to get into the discussion board. So as I mentioned before, I'll go ahead and pull it up here. The thing that I want to see most is for you to take one of our main themes and discuss Henry IV, Prince Hal, Sir John Falstaff, and Hotspur. Pick one. I would recommend only one. It's a shorter writing assignment, and you definitely need to use quotes from two parts of the text, and this is why. Because what you want to track with each of those characters is, are they changing? Are they staying the same? If they're changing, what ways are they changing? And is it a positive change or a negative change? If they're not changing, what does that say about their resilience, right? Do they continue to stay on a path even if they should change? So those are some very broad categories. I think you'll have fun with that. You can make arguments, like I've read and made several of the similar arguments of, really saying Hotspur's wrong, and then also saying that, wow, he actually has a good point now. And then regardless of whether or not he had a good point, there were 1,000 reasons for him not to go to battle. And the king had offered forgiveness, and he continued to pursue, ultimately to his demise. So take any one of those that you want to. Hotspur is one of the more fascinating characters. He's just a driven, motivated person, but that ambition, that sense of honor and pride may end up costing him in the end. In addition to all of the other characters. So I'm looking forward to what you read, to what you're writing about. Make sure you comment by Saturday. So the initial post, like every week, is due by Friday. The comments are due by Saturday, so make sure you get those done. Now, I wanted to point to a couple of things about writing that I think will be really helpful. So I have had this up here all semester, and it's going to still be here, the SEAL method. But I want to point to one thing in particular in the SEAL method that I think is going to be really helpful. So as I was working on your midterms, one of the things that I noticed, and I made this comment for several of you, is, and this is normal in writing, we write and we have this idea of where we're going, and then we start working through the details, and we come to this conclusion where we've come to the key point, where it's like, oh, everything that I had my head wrapped around really came to culmination when I brought it together at the end. While that's a good thing that you found it, it's really confusing for your readers to think they're going one direction and then all of a sudden have you taking them that direction. In other words, the best thing that you can do for your readers is to flip your paper over and start in that introduction with, this is the point that I've discovered, and here's the ways that I got there. The reason why that is because if you wait until the end to reveal your overall point, what you end up doing is you are putting a lot on your readers to make their own conclusions. And what do you do if their conclusions don't match yours? So by the end, you're actually arguing against your readers. What your readers are looking for is for you to map out, this is the point I make, and here's my support for that point. And if your readers disagree, they may disagree, that's fine, but at least it won't be this sense of they didn't know where you were going until the very end. So you will see comments from me often on these posts and in your exams flip your paper over. Start with that point that you want to prove, and then show me how you got there. So that movement of finding that last idea, that idea at the end, that real thing that you want to pursue, great. That happens all the time. It happens in my own writing all the time of, oh, I didn't really find what I was trying to write until the end. That's okay. But let that be a draft, and then make sure you do the work to flip it over to get you back to the front. So that's why this stating of the argument is so important, because you want to communicate your point to the reader as clearly and concisely as possible. It should clearly connect to the overall argument. So in what you're doing, either in a paragraph or in a sentence, is we want to hear the subject, in this case of mental health, changes in recent periods, and potential impacts that you explain. So your readers, after reading your introduction, whether it be an introductory sentence or an introductory paragraph, will know exactly, or at least in as clearly as you can tell them, where your paper is going. I am going to make this point, and here is how I'm going to prove it. Then when you get to the conclusion, it's really going back and saying, hey, you know how we started in this this paper, and I told you this is where I was going, and then we went into the details. The conclusion says, just to remind you of this is what we did, and this is how we're moving forward from here. So it's a little bit like this. I'm gonna, if you'll indulge me a little bit on an illustration that I think is good. It's a little bit like if you've ever swam competitively or anything like that, and you think and imagine of a swimming pool, right, where you have the pool itself. Let me get out of the way so you can see it, right? So you're starting here and you're ending here. Your introduction is getting into the water, right? So this is the direction I'm going. This is the way that I'm going to get there. The body of your paragraph, so this is your introduction. The body of your paragraph is swimming the distance, and then the closing is to get out of the pool. So this is where I'm going. Here's all of the things that support my point that I made in the beginning, and then here to jump back out of the pool of, let's get out of those specific details to remind you of everything we went for from this point. So it's a good guiding way for you to control this information, because otherwise the information can get out of control. And you will hear me say so often, you're kind of losing control of your information. Tell it where to go. You ever heard the old adage of, if you don't tell your money where to go, it will find its way out? It's the same thing. Tell your details where they need to go, and then you'll be able to stay in control of them. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you'll enjoy Henry IV Part 1. It's such an incredible play because it brings up so many of the things we've been discussing at this point. And it's a historical play for Shakespeare, and this was the moneymaker for the theater companies early on, at least, is if you did a historical play, you could count on audiences showing up. So enjoy it this week. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to send me an email, cmoody@aum.edu. Make sure you're checking your emails regularly. I usually send them through Blackboard, and Blackboard will let me email you. Make sure you're checking in those messages. There's just information for me there about the course, about revisions, right? If you're wanting to revise a paper. And for the midterm, by the way, if you want to revise your midterm, it's due by next Friday, March 22nd. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. I'll be happy to answer them, and I hope you have a great week.